So what are we missing? Why is it that being able to build buildings that use far less energy before we put mechanical equipment in isn't going to be enough? How is it that just because I can select all these products and put them in the building for the same cost, why that's not going to be enough to reduce the carbon emissions? And why is it that appliances that are much more efficient with the energy that they use isn't going to be enough? Why is that? This human endeavor of building buildings and powering them and then outfitting them with all this fabulous gear is something that we do collectively. We have an enormous amount of power as individuals, just an enormous amount of power. And our problems that we've been facing, the technology is one of them. And there is enormous strides in the building profession itself along those lines. And there's a lot of noise and a lot of coverage happening in the utility sector. And those guys are sweating that and trying to figure something out. I'm not an authority in that arena. We here in the building industry, we can help too, but we need assistance. We don't stand alone and create that difference by ourselves. We are part of society. We are a cultural and a technical institution that work on the behalf of all of us to make a better world. So there is this delicate series of signals that happens between all of us that are working in the industry. And in order to make a building, I need a client. And the client has to have a vision for what he can get done. The client needs to know. The client needs to know through exercises like this, through exercises of just publication, that we can reduce the energy consumption in buildings so that he knows to ask, or she knows to ask, or to hold our feet to the fire a little bit around this. Say it's a requirement that the building will use less energy. Awesome. And then I, as the dreamer engineer combination, can maybe bring that information to a client for the first time and tell them and show you guys how to do this, right? But the general contractor and I have an interesting relationship. The amount of money you spend on me is 1/10 of what you're going to spend on him. He has a really big problem. He's got a much bigger and much more chaotic problem than I have. And that is that he's got to find all those products that I specified. He's got to get them to the site on time, and he's got to get a crew of 10 different companies to come together to assemble all of it in order to create this building. And there is an entire universe. I talked about the big box stores and all the hardware that comes into our buildings. That guy, that general contractor, they're freaking heroes, those guys, because they find stuff and they make it happen. It's unbelievable what they do. They are supplied by a whole universe of people who risk their fortunes to build a light bulb, to make some carpet, to make some tile, to make some drywall or some paint or some structural timber. All those industries, all that supply chain that's out there is full of people to bring you and I Type X drywall, which is what's on the walls in office buildings that allow you an extra bit of time to get from your office where you might be sitting right now all the way out to the safe zone. Or the doorways or the hardware that goes into them. The concrete block, there's tens of thousands of companies that are feeding into this. And you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to create products in a marketplace that has weak signal for the product. So they're having a hard enough time making sure that I buy their storefront or their windows or their siding, right? But then they take the additional risk to highlight the fact that they are a low carbon or a carbon neutral product, and they've changed their entire product lineup so that everything is carbon neutral or carbon zero. Please, carbon zero people, not carbon neutral, carbon zero. Another take. Those guys aren't going to make that difference. They're not going to make that change if they don't believe that it is the way to go. And you know how they come to believe it? Their kid walks in the door and says, the frickin' whales, man. The whales are going to starve because we got CO2 in the ocean that's killing their food supply. A 10-year-old is going to do that. How does a 10-year-old know? These days, YouTube or TikTok probably. But they're going to get it from all of us talking about it. This is how market signal works. I saw a comment recently that somebody's like, aren't these same companies will fix all this. You know why? Because those companies are the same ones that are selling us all this stuff. You know how those companies come to figure out that they should sell you something? Is because they're willing to take the risk on it. Because enough of us said we want toothpaste. Because enough of us said we want a shirt that lasts. We don't just want a shirt, we want a shirt that lasts. I don't just want shoes, I want shoes that last. If I'm going to spend a little extra money, I'm willing to spend a little extra money to get a better product because it will last longer. I don't have to buy it again. It's the same way with all of this. I had a real estate friend not too long ago say to me, yeah, what happened to all this? We went through all these certifications. We did all this stuff about commercial green buildings, etc. Where is all that energy now? How did it go? The public stopped talking about it. Public stopped talking about it in big forums because we got distracted by other things. And you know what? At this point in the game, some of those other things, we're going to need to take care of that stuff. I'm telling you what, we need to take care of it. But the reason we need to take care of it is so we can continue on the journey to have a planet worth inhabiting in the next several hundred years. Because this game of building, it's a long haul game. And you and I are active participants in making sure that the generations to come get the same benefits and can inherit the same wealth that we have. And I'm not talking about the material wealth that's so well documented in Hans Rosling's Factfulness. Those outcomes will continue to come. But I'm talking about the methodology that when we do one kind of big technology project and it has consequences, we have the methodology, we have the ingenuity, we have the camaraderie, we have the community that we need so that we can attack that problem. And maybe we end up replacing a whole suite of technology. Maybe we find some other way to create light or electricity in some other fashion. Or maybe we just find a way to reduce the amount of carbon emissions that get created in how we use electricity. It's an open book, but that methodology, that way of thinking, our biggest enemies are cynicism, our apathy, and a misapplication of our powers. And that is the real reason that I got on this camera and made all of this, because our greatest asset is our ability to dream, our ability to tinker until we get it right, and to use our powers to hold each other and to care for each other, even though we've never met and may never meet.